All right. So I want to talk about what it means to participate consciously in your alternative lifestyle. So to get that started, I really need to talk first about what it means to be unconscious. So what does unconsciousness look and feel like? So to be unconscious, and I certainly used to be this way, and I was this way for a lot of my life. It was, even in my spiritual awakening that happened 2 years ago, that was like a big supernatural weird thing that happened. But even before that, I would say like the last 10 years, I've been more in touch with, some sort of spiritual side to me and some sort of like knowledge that I was on a journey, a very intentional journey of healing. But what unconsciousness felt like to me is that I was only identifying like with this physical reality. I was relying only on my 5 senses. Excuse me, that's my nervousness coming up. I would rely only on my 5 senses to move through the world. I thought that I identified as just this body, these emotions, these thoughts, my intellect. That's how I identified. And I believed that my mind had no power over my reality, and that what came my way in life was just lucky or unlucky coincidence. And misery, I find that misery and happiness are states of unconsciousness. And that's kind of where I lived for about the first 40 years of my life. And unconscious people like me, or like I was, they struggle because, they've had events that happened to them in their life, like mine. I have a history of sexual abuse and incest, of emotional abuse and neglect. And these events happened to me and forced me to start to reject or ignore parts of myself in order to survive, the household that I grew up in, or to survive and fit into society. And when we have an overwhelming experience, it's not just the physical experience that lingers with us, but really what lingers with us are the beliefs that we create about our life, about the world, and ourselves as a result of that experience. And, some of the things I used to tell myself were, life is unfair. I always lose. I'm not enough. I was over-identifying with my emotions. I am angry. I am sad. Instead of just observing an emotion, I have anger. I am observing sadness. I'm experiencing frustration. And then unconscious people are also taught to judge their feelings as good and bad. I certainly felt that way. But good and bad, as far as our feelings go, are just stories that we create. We create for ourselves, again, as a survival technique. So they're really just sensations. Emotions and thoughts are really just sensations in the body. And sometimes the stories don't even originate with us. We know now that there's generational and ancestral memories that are held in our cells. And it's been my experience now in the client work that I'm doing that past life traumas are also play a part and also are held in our cells. And because of the way we've been forced to adapt in our early lives, and from these emotionally overwhelming experiences, we think of ourselves as individual entities who are separate from each other. But we are the ones who have created that separation from the inside out. And as we grow older, we project these fragmented, unresolved pieces of ourselves onto others and onto the world. But we didn't know any better. We were being led by unconscious people. Still letting people in here. So we learn to think of ourselves as victims, as unconscious people. We believe life is a zero-sum game, that there's not enough for everyone, and so some people have to lose out. We're programmed to think that fulfillment is found in making money and having social status, but none of these things bring consciousness. None of these things bring true satisfaction. And in fact, focusing on status and power over others is to live life from a place of fear and separation and disempowerment. And the more that you identify as a victim, especially of someone or some circumstance, the more the universe brings you experiences that allow you to be a victim. That's the law of attraction. And I'm curious, can any of you, connect with what I'm saying today? I don't know where you all are sitting on your unconscious or conscious journeys. Do you recognize, the things that have been happening in your early life and how they've affected you now? Do you recognize the separation or the stories that you've created for yourself? I'd be curious to know in the chat if you want to share. And of course, this is a hyper-consensual environment, so, there's no pressure to share. So I'm going to keep going on. So all these stories that we create around our early lives, this way that we create this separation between ourselves and others, these are what I call our shadows. So now I'm going to talk about what it means to be conscious. So the first thing to know about if as a conscious person is that we're not a body that holds consciousness. We are a consciousness that has a body, that is within a body. Consciousness starts with awareness, and there are essentially two parts to that awareness. The first is the awareness. Sorry, I'm letting people in some more here. The first part of that awareness is what's happening in the dimensional reality around you, your thoughts, your feelings, the sensations, the things happening around you. And then the second part of the awareness, and probably the more important part, is the awareness of the consciousness that is perceiving those thoughts, those feelings, and those sensations. The observer of the observer. That's consciousness. And when we become aware, when we become consciously aware of the unconscious, we start to gain mastery over it. And it's a paradigm shift. And it reconfigures the way we experience everything. We recognize, which is to say that we recognize that we are not our thoughts, we are not our feelings, and we are not our wounding or our trauma. When you're conscious, you start to see more clearly that thoughts are tools and not truths, and that we have a choice in participating in those thoughts and feelings or not. We have a choice in believing those thoughts and feelings. We have a choice in whether to over-identify with those thoughts and feelings or not. So consciousness is surrendering our deeply conditioned false beliefs about who we are and what the world is, and gaining more clarity. Consciousness is the raising of your overall frequency or vibration. And when you're living from this higher frequency, which isn't higher as in like better than somebody else, it just really means faster. When you're living in this faster frequency, magical things start to happen around you. Your body seems to speak more to you. You might start to naturally turn away from certain foods or drink. Your sleep patterns might shift. You're able to tap more directly into your intuition, or this like inexplicable knowing. People whose behavior you once tolerated or overlooked become intolerable to you. And little cool synchronicities start to happen around you. You'll notice like you get all the green lights on the way to work one day, or every time you look at the clock, it's 2:22 or 11:11, or suddenly these serendipitous gifts or events start happening around you. You become more empowered in your life. These are kind of the first signs of the awareness and the consciousness coming on you. I want to stop for just a second because I'm seeing some of this stuff come on the chat. Definitely jive with what you said about early experiences and trauma, creating walls and core beliefs that we may not realize are guiding our thinking and behavior for the negative. Yeah, so true for me. And we're just kids, and there's no conscious caretaking going on. So they're not able to, our parents and our caretakers aren't able to guide us through like these overwhelming experiences because they don't know how to do it themselves. So we're left with a child's mind and a child's ability to process, something that went on. Melissa, it is recorded. So thank you. Oh, this is gold. How kind of you to say that. Thank you. Yes, it is going to be recorded and shared. Thank you. And thanks for sharing. So let's see. Where are we? The practice. Okay, so you become more empowered in your life. So once consciousness happens, you start to become more empowered. You start to see these synchronicities happen. Your frequency is higher. You start to magnetize different things to you. A lot more wins, a lot more things to celebrate, a lot more like these gifts that drop into your lap. So now I'm going to talk about the practice of living in conscious alignment. Awareness is the first step in consciousness. So we talked about that. But awareness by itself isn't enough to really drive a person's healing or to drive their spiritual expansion. It's like, for me, the same thing like going to talk therapy. talk therapy is an important first step in people's journeys. But for me, talk therapy, I became a lot aware of myself. They asked me great questions, but and then I start to ask really great questions to myself as I went on. But the talk therapy itself is like the awareness. It helps, but it's not the healing. So what you have to do is then apply that awareness to this existence, like to this 3D human existence that you're having, which means for me that you have to do the work. So here's my analogy for that. So imagine that you're standing at a doorway of a dark, expansive room, and you know you need to get to the other side of the room. And you step into the space that's dark, and whoops, you bump into something in the dark. So you move in another direction, and you hit another obstacle. And each time you try to move through the space to get to the other side, you injure yourself again and again on stuff you can't see. So this is the analogy of us when we're still in our unconscious state. And then suddenly, like, your hand brushes the wall and you realize, oh, there's a light switch here. You turn on the lights. Lights flood the room. The room is illuminated now. You can see that between you and the door on the other side is an elaborate obstacle course. There are representations of past experiences and trauma that you're going to have, stuff from past lives, stuff from your ancestors, and you're going to have to crawl under, climb over, break through, take apart, put back together. The light in the room, that's your awareness. And even with the light on, you realize that it's going to take will, it's going to take patience, it's going to take creativity and time to make your way to the other side. So for me, that's consciousness. Awareness is the light. Consciousness is now I can see the landscape and I have the knowledge of what the journey is probably going to look like. So for me, consciousness is when the game or the adventure really begins. It's when the work begins. And the journey might look daunting at first, like that obstacle course, but at least now you're going in with awareness, with purpose, and with intention. When you're conscious, you recognize that life isn't just happening to you, it's happening for you. In fact, as you struggle through the first several obstacles on your obstacle course, you realize that you're building skills that you would never have even been inspired to learn, but for those obstacles that are in your way. You're becoming stronger, more confident, more resilient. You begin to have more capacity to take on even bigger obstacles. And you begin to appreciate the journey. Magic becomes more real. You start to witness how your thoughts affect your reality. You can feel the truth that there is no separation between you and other people, that they are just another unique expression of us, and their obstacle course is just different from yours. You start to really understand and have the knowing that there is no such thing as good or bad emotions, or good or bad at all, because there's a higher meaning for every experience that's ever happened. There's a strong desire to find your purpose and to follow your passions. You see that life is meant to be enjoyed and that you are worthy to live the life of your dreams. Love and compassion are easier to reach, and there's a natural and discernible lack of judgment of others because you understand that everyone is just on their own journey. I'm curious to know, like, have some of you experienced that level of consciousness where you just notice, like, wow, I'm just not that concerned about what other people's thoughts and feelings are about me. I'm just not concerned so much about, how quickly or slowly they're passing through their own journey in life. Like, some people will say, like, not my circus, not my monkeys. And even that's sort of a step in the right direction. Someone says here, yes, I no longer see rejection. It's all only redirection to more alignment. From rejection to redirection. That's a really strong thing to say. Thanks, Valerie. So for me, when I got to this stage, this certainly all happened for me. I just naturally step into more compassion for people, naturally step into more patience. I realized that, even if they're having a really, poor moment or bad day, that it has nothing to do with me. And it worked in reverse. It was really that as I started to do the internal work myself, and I realized where all of my shit was coming from, that was coming from my past, and it wasn't about them, then it had to be true in reverse. It had to be that, in fact, Their shit had nothing to do with me. So that really helped me. And it started more of a snowball effect of like, wow, I don't have to carry everybody's stuff. I've got enough to carry on my own, and I don't have to carry everybody else's too. Some more feedback here on the chat. I connect with what you're saying so much. I catch glimpses of conscious existence, but always seem to fall off the wagon and forget what I know to be true. This is a beautiful reminder. And I'm resisting using people's names to read from the chat, just for anonymity's sake, for those who need to, to keep their names out of the public eye, or, where this recording might end up. So if I do resist using names, then know that that's why. Someone says practice. Yep. Someone else says it's not my circus and still is part of my teachers or lovers. As I take responsibility for the what's so of my life, more grace comes in. Someone else, oh my God, stop. I used to say that exact phrase all the time. Not my monkeys, not my circus. The truth is we are all in this circus together. That's a great point. Thank you. The great big circus. So, when you have that kind of realization, like we're all just on this journey together, we're all going at different paces, their journey is mine, even in relationship, right? You're even on, maybe you have a lifetime partnership, and, those journeys are still different from each other. Although, we're almost conditioned to make them one and the same. They're really not, right? We're on two different journeys. But you begin to realize that life is just really like one big video game. And not only are you the player character in the game, but you are the game designer as well. Like that's my huge unlock in the last, I'd say 6 months. And there's a blog article on my website, SharonMarieScott.com, if you're interested in reading it, called What If Life Were a Video Game? And it talks exactly about this, like that the whole purpose of our lives is to become conscious. That's the unlock. And then life becomes about mastering the internal, especially the mind, in order to excel and thrive in the game that is life. So for me, this is living in your divine identity. This is what I call radical sovereignty, consciousness, and then realizing like the whole purpose of my life here is to master the game. I remember what it was like to still be asleep, meaning unconscious, to live a life that felt so fragmented. I was even aware of like my bullshit stories in my mind and the dysfunction that I was raised with, unhealthy boundaries, codependence, shame, perfectionism, but I didn't know what to do with all of that awareness. With again, talk therapy, great. I knew all this shit was in my way, but now what do I do about it? And I also know what it's like to now have done the work and to transcend all of these stories, to transcend all of my past, and to excavate, what I found, which was this divine me, this divine identity that was buried underneath all of those experiences and all of those old stories. So living consciously in your alternative lifestyle. So how do we apply that to our alternative lifestyles? We integrate our shadows. We integrate those fragmented parts of ourselves that we had to set aside as children, that we had to set aside in order to survive. So if you don't know what the shadow self is, I have a quote from Carl Jung, who is I can't even think. I know he was a psychoanalyst. I think that's his title. But I have this quote that says, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. And that has certainly been my personal experience, that the more I ignore or reject these fragmented parts of myself, they don't go away. They will absolutely find expression. And the more I reject and ignore them, the bigger and darker and scarier they become when they finally come up. So the shadow self is part of the unconscious mind, and it is comprised of repressed ideas and instincts, impulses, desires, fears, basically all the things that our early caretakers steered us away from or told us that we shouldn't do or shouldn't want. Don't do that, don't touch that, don't say, think, feel that, don't be that. Like we talked about before, the development of our shadow self was a necessary survival mechanism. As we learned to belong or to mold ourselves into civilized members of society, But these parts of ourselves that we rejected, like I mentioned, don't just lay dormant inside us. Jung warns us that unless we're consciously aware of or embodying the repressed desires that comprise our shadow, that they'll seek expression in unhealthy ways. And for me, that's like judgment or criticism, passive aggression, violence to the self or others. So it's been my journey now to share ways for conscious humans to find healthy ways to express that shadow. And for me, alternative lifestyles have been the most efficient and most fun, like the sexiest way that I found to move through my shadows and integrate them. And for me, alternative lifestyles means sex positive, LGBTQ, kink and BDSM, polyamory, swinging, open relating. That's what alternative lifestyles is, my definition. So for me, like when I started to engage in my authentic gender expression, my authentic sensuality, my kinks, and when I broke open, my monogamous marriage to be in multiple relationships, I created this opportunity to turn what was this like secret, dirty play into this beautiful sacred space. And it transformed my relationship to my shadow from these unconscious needs and desires to conscious choice. And I learned to reframe the thought patterns of embarrassment and guilt and shame, which I had been conditioned to feel about all of those things, into arousal and pleasure and celebration. Example of shadow, someone's asking. Gosh, so many. So, I am a survivor of childhood incest. And as a result of that, I have an incest fetish. It's not something I used to be able to talk about. I certainly never told anybody that I would try to look up incest porn and stuff like that. But there was someone in the kink community when I finally got involved who was really open about her incest experiences from her childhood. She wasn't embarrassed to talk about it. And she knew it's exactly like I live now. It's like she lived in her incest fetish out loud and was proud of it. And it's not that she wanted to go be engaged with that family member again, just like, mine was my brother, and I have no interest in in re-engaging with my brother. I laugh about it now, but like, it's really sexy and arousing to me to think about, imbalanced power relationships. And it doesn't just translate to like brother, sister, or father, daughter, or whatever else. It's also like, policeman, perpetrator, and teacher, student. Like that stuff is really hot to me, but it's not because I want to see people in real life playing those roles. The sexy part is the engagement of the role play itself. In fact, that person that who was so bold about her own incest fetish, and she totally paved the way for me to feel this way about mine. But like her husband, and they have a dirty daddy baby girl dynamic. And when people ask him about the dirty daddy baby girl thing, he's like, I don't want to fuck little girls. I want to fuck women who dress and act like little girls. And like, it's such a funny, simple response, but there is a nuance that is super smart about that being the truth. Like, totally different. And so that's how I engage with my incest fetish now too. I don't have any problem with it. I have partners who love to pop in and out of playing that role for me, or I'll engage it myself. So that's certainly an example of shadow that was once all hidden and invisible, and I rejected it, and I hid it, and I never told anyone about it. That is now, really integrated into myself now. And I know that I've paved the way now for other people to really lean into their fetishes and their kinks as well. Some people think that one is, really extreme, and it doesn't feel that way to me now anymore. So that's pretty cool. In a healthy way. Beautiful. Thank you. So true. So unless you guys have any more specific questions about, how you might be engaging, how you could engage in your alternative lifestyle more consciously, I wanted to also talk to you about this subscription membership community that I'm developing. And it's launching in just a couple of weeks on April 2nd. And it's on a platform called Circle that I'm still getting to know, but it's a private group where we get to talk about really this, like, how do you participate in your alternative lifestyle on purpose for self-growth. And it's gonna have a couple of different specialty tracks and stuff, but in general, it's gonna be similar to the Woo Underground private Facebook group, where it is really about the integration of spirituality and your alternative lifestyle. So I have some courses I'm building as well on how to be your own medicine, how to live in conscious alignment, alternative relationships 101, deprogramming our monogamous conditioning, which if you don't know, it's like all of this societal conditioning that we grow up with that tells us that we should want one person for our rest of our life, that it should be heterosexual, that it should be cis and heterosexual, like, dispelling all of that programming so that we can live more interdependently. And then I'm going to be sharing things like, so I've got my list here. I've got sharing things like nervous system regulation, spiritual hygiene and maintenance. We'll do relationship things like jealousy, holding space. I'll also be sharing healing techniques like somatic healing and inner child work. There will be, how kink can inform your poly. That's a really cool workshop that I'll be giving too. And there'll certainly be lives like this where you can ask me questions, and maybe we do live healings and stuff for those people who are really, really willing to participate at that level. And then I wanted to talk about the healing process itself. In my practice and in my personal work, it's what I call bottom of the Jenga tower work. So like when you're on a conscious journey, you're participating in it on purpose in order to hold space for the wounding that is coming up. And when you do that, you expand, and then you have more capacity to hold more. And let's see, I've got some words here. Thank you for sharing that with us and allowing us to understand. New perspective for me. Great, thank you. I like what you said about something feeling extreme until it's voiced, after which the scary idea loses some of its negative power. That was me today. That was me today with my 5-year-old that was coming up, and I was so spinning, and like my whole nervous system was having such a reaction to it, and I was shaking. I'm actually can still feel the kind of post nervous system fight or flight response. Like my fingers are really cold, and I'm like slightly clammy. Sorry, but back to the bottom of the Jenga tower work. So in my own healing journey and in the work that I do with clients, we are tackling the bottom of the Jenga tower. So the way that I explain that is when we go through life and we have an emotionally overwhelming experience, and I'm using emotionally overwhelming experience as a substitute for trauma, because trauma is kind of a loaded word. Everybody has a different definition. Gabor Mate defines trauma as responding to a present moment as if it were the past. That's a big thing to say. Every single person on the planet has the experience of responding to a present moment as if it were the past, but not all of them are actually conscious that that's what's happening. So bottom of the Jenga tower is you have an emotionally overwhelming experience, usually in your early childhood, and that builds a block at the bottom of your Jenga tower. These are like our core wounds from our early childhood. And as a result of those core wounds, we begin to build, like this is where our shadows are built, where our fragmentation takes place. And we start to build these coping mechanisms. Let someone in here. We start to build these coping mechanisms on top of the bottom of the Jenga tower. So this is what builds our tower for us. And it's totally possible, like again, starting with say talk therapy, and to work from the top of the tower down, like the coping mechanisms are, or the expressions of the core wounding are like, I don't know how to talk to my boss. I don't know how to say no. I'm a people pleaser. You have all of these traits that you sort of start to identify that you want to change. And that's the top of the tower. And you can work your way down and eventually get to the bottom of the tower and then heal the original wounding. Or you can go right to the bottom of the tower, identify what that original wound was, find where it still resides in the body and release it. And then what happens is once that bottom block has been released, all of the coping mechanism blocks that have built on top of the tower just eventually fall away pretty quickly, actually, after that original block is removed. So that's the effort of the Woo Underground private subscription membership, is to share with you all of the tools that I have experienced personally, that I have been using in my practice. And they come from every source, spiritual, psychological, just practical ones, like in my Be Your Own Medicine course. This course totally stems out from this little 3-month period of time in my life when, I was living alone for the first time in my life. And I found myself, of course, like getting lonely or wanting to reach out to one partner or another for what? That's what I was trying to figure out. Like, man, I really like in a moment of what? Loneliness. What was I really wanting that I was trying to reach out to these partners for something? So I started to ask myself, what am I really looking for? And the answer was different. What I realized was the answer was different every time. Like sometimes I wanted to reach out because I just wanted some touch. Sometimes I reached out because I wanted to feel desired by them. Sometimes I reached out because I was just bored and I needed some socializing. Sometimes I wanted to be in service. Like I wanted to feel like my life mattered or it was significant in some way. And once I started to identify like what these core needs were, these unmet core needs were, I started to practice and brainstorm ways to meet that need from the inside out first. So instead of calling a partner, for a date because I wanted to feel desired, I would put on sexy lingerie and dance in front of a mirror to sexy music. And I would feel desired. I would desire myself. If I felt bored, I just took myself to like the local burger bar and hung out with the bartender and chatted up the patrons or whoever was nearby. If I wanted to feel pampered, that's certainly one that it still pops up for me. Then I would give myself a bath or a pedicure or take myself out for a massage. So that's the Be Your Own Medicine course. That course was developed in this just three-month period of time where I started to really analyze and ask myself the whys of what I was really looking for, and then started to practice these exercises of how to love myself better from the inside out. And in that 3 months, it was some sort of unlock. And I have never, and that was 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago, I have never felt lonely since that 3-month period. Because I just know I have this, it's like the building of this self-trust. And I have this knowing that I can take care of myself and I don't need, it's like I can now incorporate partners and friends. I call friends over for massage swaps and stuff like that, but I don't need other partners. I'm not incomplete as a person. I'm complete now. And instead of, being like a puzzle piece that I'm looking for that puzzle piece in other people, I'm already complete. Instead, and what I have to share now in relationship is not like, fill this hole for me, but I'm already complete. And so what I'm sharing is now the overflow of a cup that is already full. So again, like these are the goals of the subscription membership, is to share all of these tools, practical, professional, and otherwise, that will help make your journey not be as long or as arduous or as painful as the one that I went through. I'm going to read some of these chats stuff as well here. Let's see. You want them, not need them. Yes, right. I am no longer coming from need. I can ask it if I want it. And I'm also like not, it also helps with the rejection. We all have that fear of rejection and abandonment. And now I can ask because I want to. And if they say no, it's not such a big blow to my person as it once was. Just asking ourselves the whys is big advanced work for some people, by which I mean sometimes, yes, totally true. Asking yourself the whys, but this is the space for that, the Woo Underground in general, both the private Facebook group and certainly that's what my kink journey looked like too. Like that's when I really started to see change, was when I started to ask myself the whys. Where did, I knew where my incest fetish came from, but why did I want submission? In fact, this Sunday, I'm giving a co-hosted talk with Queen Depp, who is on FetLife, and we co-host a group called the Erotic Empowerment Circle, and it's happening Pacific time from 2 to 4 on Sunday, and it's both going to be on Zoom and in person, in case anybody wants to join. And normally we do an open Q&A where we have people write questions anonymously, and we draw the questions out and answer them. But for this Sunday, we are doing a program called Kink Fundamentals for Submissives. And again, this is from a lot of my journey, but when I had to finally ask myself, like, why was I drawn to the very particular styles of submission that I seem to need? Why dirty daddy? And when I started to ask myself the whys and then answering them, I could ask better. I could ask the dominant that I was playing with for more engaged and enriched play. I knew I created emotional goals for the scenes or for the evenings that we spent together. And this was the way, like even before my big spiritual awakening, this was the way I started to consciously participate in my alternative lifestyle. let's see. Someone's asking about the link for Sunday's event. Let me first drop the link to, this is first the link to the wait list. If you're interested in information on the subscription membership group that's coming up in April. And then let me go grab, there are different venues by which I promote these events. So let me see, let me grab the Eventbrite. Let me grab the Eventbrite, and then I can get you that link to Sunday. Here we go. Sorry about that. Give me one more second. I'm not totally great with all this tech stuff. Love having people help me with this. Here we go. Share event. Copy. Thanks for your patience. All right. So this is for the Sunday's Erotic Empowerment Circle. And we just finished last Sunday. My nesting partner Disco and I just finished. We do a monthly discussion called The Art of Interdependent Relating. And it's a different topic every month. And we just finished the topic of jealousy. It was a great discussion last Sunday. And this next month, we're going to be doing forgiveness. Just saying what this is here. This is for the Erotic Empowerment Circle coming up this Sunday. Let me know if these links don't work for some reason, please. All right. I love what you just said about asking yourself the whys so that you can better communicate with your partner or dom what it is you need and want from a scene. Yeah, big time different. It's so different. Emotional goals around things that are making us feel squiggly, big and hard and good. Great reminder. Yeah, I've got a document that I just finished creating called EQ for Conscious Pervs. And it's at the VA right now, like getting all prettied up. So it looks like a really nice document. But that'll get published soon as well. Now, of course, the membership platform will be the first to receive stuff like that. And then this document that I'm creating for Sunday, Kink Fundamentals for Submissives, it's 20 pages long. It won't be able to go over 20 pages worth of material on Sunday, but that will also become a guide. So these are the kinds of things that hopefully you can see how they're integrating both the spirituality with the alternative lifestyles. Are those recorded? Some of them are. Sometimes I honestly just forget to record. So the ones that are like, no one bought a Zoom ticket last Sunday for the jealousy one, so it was not recorded. And we'll see whether there are tickets sold for this Sunday for Zoom. So, because if I don't have to set up the Zoom and have somebody run it, then, I don't really bother with it. Sometimes I'll do an audio recording if I remember, but I get a little nervous and excited sometimes, and I'll forget to hit record. I have somebody, I need to like hire someone to just come in and say, hey, don't forget to record, every time I give a talk. Amazing work on all of this. Gah, so exciting. Thank you so much. That's really great to hear. So I think that's pretty much what I have to share today. Going back to my document. The specialty tracks that will be popping up eventually on the membership will be conscious self-care, conscious relating, and conscious kink, and also about spiritual awakening. So I'll be sharing like more and more of the things that I'm learning about, how to progress your own spiritual awakening faster than mine. And years from now, I think what my big dream is that I want to look back and say that I helped encourage a conscious, inclusive, and spiritually literate community that celebrates, their deep desires, their passionate play, and that they live their life turned on like mine, every day. And by turned on, for me, that means like in joy and sacred purpose every day. Happy birthday, Sharon. So appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you so much. Where are the links being shared? I don't see them here in the chat. Is anybody else seeing or not seeing? Oh, you know what? They're going to Karen directly. Whoops. I was responding, I think, to someone. And thank you for letting me know. Here we go again. Here's the wait list. I'm so glad you spoke up, Kristen. This is how new I am at leading this stuff live. And here is the Erotic Empowerment Circle link. Thank you so much. All right. Can y'all let me know if you're seeing those? Got him. Fantastic. Okay. So I will also be dropping in April. We're going to go deeper on what it means to be consciously participating in your alternative lifestyle. And every month I'll also be dropping some sort of meditation or activation based on whatever topic that we're hot to talk about. And in April, I'm also going to share with you an exercise I call the body's yes and no. Because again, as you start to live in this conscious journey, your body starts to talk to you, or you start to listen more. Your body is always talking to you, and you start to be able to hear what it's having to say more. And I have an actual like physical exercise that you can do where you can start to ask your body, like, does it want this food? Does it want that thing? Do I want to make this decision? Like, which road do I want to take? And you can actually, there are exercises where you can ask your body and learn its language that it is speaking to you. And there are ways to test it. And then, and I think that's a really powerful tool, as we move forward with the rest of this work. Is there a link for the subscription for the Woo Underground group you have been mentioning? That is the waitlist link, the first one that I sent, because the membership doesn't start until April 2nd. So right now it's a waiting room list. So feel free to click on that. I want to be more aware of how getting triggered hints me to what I need to shine a light on, especially in relating. Yeah. It's a tricky question and not one that has a simple answer. The trigger itself isn't necessarily important, but the body's response or the cellular memory's response, that's what's important. And even in my journey, even with all the tools that I have and the level of awareness that I have, I'll be triggered and I still won't know the perfect solution for holding space for that younger wounded self that's coming up that leads to integration. It's not a perfect science in that way. It's not perfectly logical in that way. But what you can do is you can begin to ask yourself certain questions, and like, where is the wisdom? There's a wisdom in, this discomfort that's coming up. There's a wisdom to analyzing the polarity, the two opposites, the trigger that's coming up and its opposite, and giving meaning to one over the other. It's a choice to give meaning to one feeling over the other. So it's a broader question and it has a broader answer. But the more you practice it, the easier that journey will get, obviously, and the better you get at listening to what your psyche is saying, what your body's saying, what your higher self is saying, the more those answers will come with better clarity. So while I say that there are times when I don't know how to get through it, there's plenty of times where I do now too, but they're just still like, sometimes, especially if like a trigger is so early, like maybe pre-verbal, maybe it's from your like your toddlerhood or even as an infant, you can't necessarily talk to your baby self and get a clear and, logical and rational answer as to what's being triggered for you. So it's a complex journey to be on. And, I'm here for it. I'm here to just help you all have a softer landing than my journey's been. Wisdom and discomfort. Thank you. Yes, cool. I'm glad you interpreted my jibber jabber. It's a Facebook page, right? We do have the free Facebook page. So Kristen, I know you're asking about the Woo Underground group. You're already a part of that group on Facebook. And then, like I said, the one that I'm referring to is the one that I sent the waitlist link on. So feel free to sign up on the waitlist there, and then you'll get all the information as April 2nd rolls around. So it's 3:50. I can't believe I've been talking this long already, but I would love if you all have ideas on, very personal, the personal things that you're dealing with in relationship, in your queerness, in your kink journey, in your erotic journey. I encourage you to post questions and discussions on the free Facebook group, unless and until the subscription membership comes and you join us there. I would love to have suggestions on topics that you need covered, or a specific moment. In fact, today, as I sat in meditation for about 40 minutes, working on the 5-year-old that was coming up and all this body response today, there was some very specific stories that played out in my head as I held space for her and asked her what she needed, and asked her to come and help me today. So I'm hoping to write that up and write up the journey that I went on with her today, to sort of give you an example of what my embodiment looks like. What, I live this stuff every day. And so I'm hoping to be able to share with some clarity, what that looks like for me. The cost for the subscription. Thanks for asking. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing this with all of us. So needed all of this in my life right now. So the cost of the subscription right now, if you get in at this stage, it's super cheap. It's $33 a month, which is really just the cost of coming to any one of my discussion groups live or over Zoom on any given month. So, for the people that jump in really early, it's $33, but that will definitely be going up. So that's what it is for now. Any other questions? Yes, thank you, Sharon. You're welcome. And thank you all for showing up. Yeah. I hope that I've, done justice to the subject, and that I've given you some clarity on the kind of things that you can see every month in the group. And that's really it. I don't know how to end this. I'll share my awkwardness with you as I sit here and wonder how to close. Thanks so much. Such a joy to spend time with you on your birthday. Oh yeah, it's my birthday. 52, baby. 52 looks great. We celebrate you. Love forwarded on. You did great. Thanks for your sharing. It's helped me remind me of not only what I need to work on with myself, but how to be more mindful of my partner's needs and communicating. I have a partner who I didn't think is always aware of what's behind her kinks. This was fabulous. Thank you so much. Happy birthday. You're a gift. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Sharon. And thank you for sharing your divine wisdom. Shut the front door. 52. Happy birthday. And I will say this too, these topics that Disco and I are covering in the Art of Interdependent Relating, I think we're about on maybe April's our 6th month. These are becoming chapter outlines. So I do have plans to take all of those topic outlines. Those will become a book on relationships. I'll be publishing a sort of a beginner's non-monogamy book called More-ogamy. So anything that a couple might choose to do when they step into something more than monogamy. I will be producing an Art of Interdependent Relating book, which is what I consider to be maybe more advanced relating. And then eventually, as I continue to experience this spiritual awakening, I will be eventually publishing a book on spiritual awakening, probably entitled something like The Game Tutorial of Life. Since, for those of you who don't know, before I was a healer, I was a writer of comic books and video games and movies and books. And so it's a really funny transition to have come from. But I feel like, what I learned as a storyteller and as an observer of people, I learned what I feel like it really applies to universal heroes' journeys and people's transformations. How can we send you any ideas per your request? I'm hoping that you'll send them over the Facebook group, the current Facebook group that most of you got this link from. If you don't have, let me get that just in case any of you are not part of the Facebook group yet. Let me just make sure you have that link before we close. There you go. Let's see, anything more? Thank you for your gifts. So great to see you. I'm just going to give that a few minutes on the Woo Underground Facebook group link, just in case anybody needs it. I don't want to shut down quite so soon, but if you need to go, please do. And thank you so much for being here today. And I hope to see you online. I would love to see more chit chat on the Woo Underground. I am really, it is the cheapest, best way to have me as a resource, and I'm so happy to answer your questions. Somebody from the Woo says, you post such good stuff on the Woo Underground. I'm grateful. Yeah, there's some great articles, not all mine, believe me. that are so wonderful to share. Some great kinky ones recently too, because anything I'm working on, like right now I'm working on the kink fundamentals for submissive. So I'm looking up referential articles and stuff. And so I post everything that's really hot and juicy. So thank you all. See you on the Woo Underground. Thanks.